The ice winds of Kepler. 442b howled across the frozen wasteland with a fury that could strip flesh from bone in seconds. The planet's twin suns had disappeared behind thick storm clouds 3 days ago, plunging the already frigid world into an endless twilight of swirling snow and deadly cold. Zara huddled deeper into the emergency shelter, her small violet hands trembling as she tried to keep her younger brother Kix warm. The Zilani child was barely 5 cycles old, his normally bright blue skin now pale with cold and fear. Their parents had gone to search for food 2 days ago when their rations ran out, promising to return before the storm worsened. That was the last time Zara had seen them. The shelter's power cells were failing. The heating unit that had kept them alive this long gave a weak sputter and died completely. Zara felt her heart sink as the temperature inside their small refuge began to plummet toward the deadly levels outside. She pulled her brother closer, sharing what little body heat she had left. "Zara, I'm scared," Kix whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. "Where are Mama and Papa?" "They'll come back," Zara lied, fighting back her own tears. She knew the truth. The storm was too strong, too cold. Nothing could survive out there for long. Even if their parents were still alive, they would never make it back in time. Kix's breathing became shallow and labored. Frost was beginning to form on his eyelashes. Zara watched in horror as her brother's lips turned blue, then purple. She tried everything she could think of, rubbing his hands and feet, breathing warm air on his face, but it wasn't enough. She was losing him. Outside, the wind reached a crescendo that made the shelter walls groan and flex. Snow found its way through every tiny gap, creating small drifts inside their supposed sanctuary. Zara's own vision was becoming blurry as hypothermia began to set in. She held Kix tighter, singing the lullaby their mother used to hum, even as her voice cracked with cold and grief. Then, she heard something impossible. Through the screaming wind and rattling walls, there came a sound that didn't belong. A rhythmic thumping like footsteps, but too heavy and purposeful to be natural. Something was moving outside in the storm. Zara's mind raced with possibilities, most of them terrifying. The story spoke of ice predators that hunted during storms, drawn by the warmth of living creatures. But the footsteps seemed too deliberate, too intelligent for a wild animal. As they grew closer, she could hear something else, a mechanical humming that rose and fell with each step. The footsteps stopped directly outside their shelter. For a moment, there was only the wind. Then came 3 loud, measured knocks on the door. Not the scraping or clawing of a beast, but the purposeful knock of an intelligent being seeking entry. Zara hesitated. Opening the door would let in the deadly cold and almost certainly kill them both. But staying sealed inside meant dying slowly as they froze to death anyway. Kix stirred weakly in her arms, his breathing so faint she had to strain to hear it. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. Then a voice called out, speaking in broken but understandable Zilani. The words were strange, pronounced with an accent Zara had never heard before. "Small ones inside. Cold coming. Need help quick." Zara's hands shook as she reached for the door controls. Whatever was outside had just spoken to them in their own language, however clumsily, that suggested intelligence, possibly even benevolence. More importantly, it suggested technology advanced enough to survive in the storm. She made her decision and activated the door. It slid open with a grinding sound, and a blast of frigid air rushed in, along with swirling snow that stung her eyes. Through the white chaos, a figure stepped into their shelter. The being was unlike anything Zara had ever seen. Tall and broad, covered head to toe in some kind of advanced environmental suit that hummed with power. The suit's exterior was a dull gray that seemed to absorb the storm's fury, and strange symbols glowed softly along its arms and chest. Where the figure's face should be, there was only a dark visor that reflected her own frightened expression back at her. The door sealed shut again, cutting off the wind's howl. The stranger stood motionless for a moment, then raised gloved hands in what might have been a gesture of peace. When the being spoke again, its voice came from a device attached to its suit, translating words into Zilani with mechanical precision. "I am human. You are cold. I help." The human moved with surprising speed and efficiency. Without waiting for permission, the tall figure knelt beside Kix and began scanning the dying child with a device that emerged from its suit's wrist. Blue light played across Kix's pale features while numbers and symbols flickered on a small display. Critical hypothermia, the translation device announced in its flat, mechanical tone. Organ failure imminent. Immediate intervention required. Zara watched in fascination and growing hope as the human's suit transformed. Panels slid open to reveal compartments filled with equipment she didn't recognize. The stranger's movements were precise and purposeful, like someone who had dealt with life-or-death situations many times before. The human produced a silver blanket that seemed impossibly thin, but immediately began radiating warmth. As it was wrapped around Kix, the boy's breathing deepened slightly. Next came a small device that the human pressed gently against Kix's neck. A soft hiss indicated some kind of injection. Stimulant to maintain cardiac function, the suit explained. Warming protocol initiating. But the human wasn't finished. From another compartment came a larger device that unfolded into what looked like a portable medical scanner. Red lines of light swept over Kix's body while the human monitored readouts that meant nothing to Zara but clearly conveyed important information to the experienced rescuer. Blood chemistry stabilizing. Core temperature rising. Prognosis improving. The mechanical voice paused, then added something that sounded almost gentle. Small one will live. Only then did the human turn attention to Zara. The dark visor tilted toward her, and she found herself wondering what kind of being looked back at her from behind that impenetrable facade. The scanner swept over her as well, and she felt a warm, tingling sensation as the device assessed her condition. Moderate hypothermia, dehydration, exhaustion. Treatment recommended, but not critical. The human reached into yet another compartment and produced a warm drink in a self-heating container. Consume this. Slowly, Zara accepted the drink with numb fingers. It tasted strange, but wonderful, warming her from the inside out with each sip. As feeling returned to her hands and feet, she found her voice. Who are you? How did you find us? The human was adjusting settings on a device that had transformed their dying shelter into a warm haven. The failing power cells had been bypassed by some kind of external energy source that hummed quietly in the corner. I am Marcus Chun, of Earth, the translation device responded. I'm searching for my ship's crew when storm began. Thermal sensors detected your heat signatures. Your ship. Zara's knowledge of interstellar travel was limited, but she knew it was incredibly expensive and usually restricted to government vessels or major corporations. Research Vessel Columbia. We study extreme weather patterns across the galaxy. Marcus adjusted the temperature controls again, and Zara felt the air grow noticeably warmer. My team became separated during initial survey. I have been searching for 3 days. The admission surprised Zara. This human had been alone in the storm for as long as she and Kix had been trapped, yet Marcus seemed completely unaffected by the ordeal. The environmental suit was clearly advanced beyond anything the Zalani possessed, but there was something more. The human moved with confidence and determination that suggested this was just another day's work. 3 days in the storm? Zara couldn't hide her amazement. Nothing can survive out there that long. Marcus paused in his work. The visor turned toward her again, and for a moment she thought she detected something like amusement in the gesture. Humans are persistent, the translation device said after a brief delay. We do not give up easily. Kix stirred and opened his eyes for the first time in hours. His skin was returning to its normal blue color, and his breathing had become strong and regular. He looked up at the imposing figure in confusion and fear. It's okay, Zara whispered to her brother in their own language. The human saved your life. Human. Kix's eyes widened. He had heard the stories, as all Zalani children had. Humans were legends, beings of incredible resilience and stubborn determination who could survive anywhere and overcome any obstacle. Most adults dismissed the stories as folklore, but here was living proof that the legends were real. Marcus reached into his suit one more time and produced something that made both children gasp. It was food, real food, packaged in warming containers that filled the shelter with delicious aromas. Not the emergency rations they had been surviving on, but actual meals with vegetables and proteins they recognized. Eat, Marcus commanded gently. Storm will continue for many hours. You need strength. As they shared the meal, Zara found herself studying their rescuer with growing curiosity. The human suit was a marvel of engineering, but it was more than just technology. There was something about the way Marcus moved, the calm confidence in every action, that spoke of inner strength as much as advanced equipment. Why did you risk coming into the storm to help us? Zara asked between bites of the best food she had tasted in days. You don't even know us. The visor remained fixed on her for a long moment before Marcus replied. Because you needed help, the translation device said simply. That is enough. Hours passed as the storm continued its relentless assault on the planet's surface. Marcus had established a routine of monitoring his equipment, checking on the children's health, and maintaining their warm sanctuary. Despite the comfortable environment inside the shelter, Zara could hear the wind growing even stronger outside, if such a thing was possible. Kix had recovered enough to become curious about their rescuer. He peppered Marcus with questions about Earth, about humans, about the strange suit that seemed capable of anything. The human answered patiently, sometimes even showing them holographic displays of distant worlds and alien creatures. Is it true that humans never give up? Kix asked, his young eyes bright with wonder. Marcus was silent for a moment, perhaps choosing his words carefully. We are taught from childhood that persistence often matters more than talent. The translation device finally responded. We call it stubborn sometimes. Zara was learning to read the subtle signs in Marcus's body language. The way the human's head tilted suggested amusement, even though she couldn't see the face behind the visor. It was becoming clear that Marcus was more than just a rescuer with advanced technology. There was a depth of character there, forged by experiences they could barely imagine. Marcus, Zara ventured, how many people have you saved? The human's hands paused in their work on a device she didn't recognize. The question hung in the air for several seconds before Marcus responded. I do not count such things, came the reply. Each life is important. Numbers make it seem like statistics. But Zara had caught something in the pause, in the careful phrasing of the response. This was not Marcus's first rescue. The human's movements, the immediate assessment of their medical needs, the calm confidence in the face of a deadly situation, all spoke of extensive experience with emergency situations. The storm outside reached a new level of fury. Even through the shelter's reinforced walls and Marcus's improvements to their heating system, they could feel the building vibrate with each massive gust of wind. Ice crystals found their way through microscopic gaps, creating tiny sculptures in the corners of their refuge. How long will it last? Zara asked, though she dreaded the answer. Marcus consulted a weather tracking device built into his suit's forearm display. Swirling patterns of color showed the massive storm system that engulfed their region of the continent. 73 more hours minimum, Marcus announced. Possibly longer. This storm is larger than initial projections indicated. 3 more days. Zara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Their original supplies had been exhausted after just 2 days. Even with Marcus's provisions, they couldn't survive that long in the shelter. Can we travel in this? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. Negative. Even my suit has limitations. Wind speeds outside are exceeding safe parameters for movement. Marcus turned toward them, and somehow Zara could sense the human's concern despite the emotionless visor. We wait, or we find alternative. What alternative? Kix asked innocently, not understanding the gravity of their situation. Marcus was quiet for several minutes, working with devices and consulting displays. The human's movements had taken on a different quality, more urgent and focused. Whatever alternative Marcus was considering, it required careful planning. There's a research station 47 kilometers northeast, Marcus finally said. Automated facility, designed to survive extreme weather. Better supplies, more robust power systems. 47 kilometers? Zara's voice cracked. In this storm, not possible for you, Marcus agreed, but possible for me. I retrieve supplies, bring back equipment to improve our situation. The full implication hit Zara like a physical blow. Marcus was proposing to leave them alone while venturing out into a storm that was growing worse by the hour. It was incredibly dangerous, even for someone with advanced equipment. If something happened to the human, she and Kix would die slowly in their failing shelter. But the alternative was dying slowly anyway. "How long would you be gone?" she asked quietly. Marcus consulted more displays, calculating travel time through the howling wilderness outside. Minimum 18 hours, possibly longer depending on conditions and equipment availability at station. 18 hours alone in the storm. 18 hours during which a dozen things could go wrong with their shelter, their heating, their air supply. 18 hours during which Marcus could become lost, injured, or worse in the deadly conditions outside. "There has to be another way," Zara said desperately. "I have analyzed all available options," Marcus replied with mechanical certainty. "This offers the highest probability of survival for all three of us." Kix looked back and forth between them, beginning to understand that something important was being discussed. His young face showed fear, but also a growing trust in the strange human who had already saved his life once. "Will you come back?" Kix asked with the directness that only children possess. Marcus knelt down to Kix's level, bringing the intimidating visor closer to the boy's face. When the human spoke, there was something different about the translated voice, warmer, somehow, despite the mechanical delivery. "I promise you, small one, I will come back." The simple statement carried a weight that made Zara believe it absolutely. This was not a casual promise or empty reassurance. This was a vow from someone who had probably made similar promises before and kept them against impossible odds. Marcus began preparing for the journey, checking and rechecking every system in the advanced suit. Watching the preparations, Zara realized she was witnessing something remarkable. Most beings would consider the mission impossible, a guaranteed death sentence. But Marcus approached it like a difficult but manageable task, with the methodical confidence of someone who specialized in achieving the impossible. Marcus had been gone for 22 hours. Zara tried not to think about what that meant as she held Kix close and monitored their dwindling resources. The human had left them with enough supplies to last another day, maybe two if they were careful. The heating system that Marcus had jury-rigged continued to function, but she could see warning indicators blinking on displays she didn't understand. "He's coming back," Kix said firmly, though Zara could hear the uncertainty beneath his brave words. He promised. She wanted to believe that. Marcus had shown them technological marvels, demonstrated abilities that seemed almost superhuman. But even legends had limits, and the storm outside was testing those limits with unrelenting fury. The wind had changed direction twice since Marcus left, each shift bringing new challenges to their shelter. Ice had formed on the inside walls despite the heating, and Zara could see frost gathering around the door seals. Their refuge was slowly losing the battle against the planet's hostile environment. To distract herself and Kix from their growing fear, Zara had been exploring the equipment Marcus left behind. Most of it was incomprehensible, but some devices responded to touch with displays of information. She discovered weather tracking systems showing the massive storm that still covered half their continent. She found maps marking locations across the planet, including a blinking indicator that must represent the research station Marcus was trying to reach. According to the display, the station was impossibly far away across terrain that looked treacherous even in good weather. The route was marked with elevation changes, rocky outcroppings, and areas labeled with symbols that probably indicated dangerous conditions. To traverse such distance in a storm that could kill most beings in minutes seemed beyond the realm of possibility. Yet Marcus had attempted it anyway, carrying nothing but determination and whatever supplies the advanced suit could provide. The more Zara learned about the journey her rescuer had undertaken, the more amazed she became at the sheer audacity of it. "Look at this," Kix called out, pointing to one of the displays. "The storm is moving." Zara joined her brother and saw that he was right. The massive weather system was slowly shifting eastward, though it would be hours before their location was clear. More importantly, she could see a small indicator moving across the map, heading back toward their position. Marcus was returning, but the indicator was moving strangely, sometimes stopping for long periods, sometimes deviating from the direct route. Zara tried to convince herself that it was just the harsh conditions forcing Marcus to take shelter or find alternate paths. She refused to consider the possibility that their rescuer was injured or in trouble. As the hours crept by, the indicator grew closer but its movement became increasingly erratic. It would make good progress for a while, then stop completely for long stretches. During one particularly long pause, Zara began to fear the worst. Had Marcus finally reached the limit of human endurance? Then the indicator began moving again, but slowly, as if whoever carried it was struggling against overwhelming obstacles. Zara found herself staring at the display, willing the small to continue its journey toward their shelter. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Kix pressed closer to the screen. His young eyes had picked up details she had missed. "Look at the path," he said. "It's not straight anymore." He was right. Instead of following the optimal route back to their shelter, Marcus seemed to be wandering, taking detours that made no tactical sense. The pattern suggested someone who was lost, disoriented, or worse. The storm outside their shelter was finally beginning to weaken slightly. The wind still howled with deadly force, but the constant rattling of their walls had diminished. Zara could even see brief moments when the white chaos outside cleared enough to reveal glimpses of the frozen landscape beyond. That was when she saw the light. It was just a flicker at first, a brief flash of illumination moving through the storm. But it was too steady and purposeful to be natural phenomena. Someone was out there, fighting their way through the deadly cold toward their shelter. "Marcus!" Kix shouted, pressing his face against the small window. The light grew brighter and more consistent, resolving into the unmistakable glow of an advanced suit's illumination systems. But something was different about the way it moved. Instead of Marcus's usual confident stride, the figure approached with an uneven gait that spoke of exhaustion or injury. When the familiar knock finally came at their door, it was weaker than before. Zara rushed to open it, and Marcus stumbled inside, the usually pristine suit now scarred and damaged from the brutal journey. Ice covered every surface of the armor, and several indicator lights that had been green were now blinking red. Medical supplies. Marcus gasped through the translation device, which now carried static and distortion. Power cells. Food for weeks. Mission successful. The human collapsed to one knee, clearly pushed beyond normal limits. But even in obvious distress, Marcus was already pulling equipment from storage compartments built into the suit. True to the promise, Marcus had returned with everything they needed to survive until rescue arrived. Zara and Kix rushed to help their rescuer, though they weren't sure what to do. The suit's diagnostic displays were flashing warnings they couldn't read, but the message was clear enough. Marcus had pushed the advanced equipment to its breaking point and beyond. "Are you hurt?" Zara asked, hovering uncertainly near the human. "Suit damage only," Marcus replied, though the translation device's increasing distortion made the words difficult to understand. "Human condition acceptable." But as Marcus tried to stand, Zara could see that wasn't entirely true. The movement was careful and deliberate in a way that suggested pain or injury. Their rescuer had paid a price for the supplies that would save their lives. Working together, they helped Marcus remove the most damaged external components of the suit. Underneath, they found a being that looked surprisingly similar to them, though taller and more robust than any Zalani. Marcus's face was pale with exhaustion, marked with lines of determination and quiet suffering that spoke of the ordeal just survived. For the first time, Zara saw their rescuer's eyes. They were kind but fierce, holding depths of experience and unshakable resolve. These were the eyes of someone who made impossible promises and kept them, no matter the personal cost. 3 weeks later, the storm finally passed, leaving behind a landscape transformed by ice and snow. The rescue ships that arrived found 3 survivors in a shelter that had been converted into a small but efficient survival station, complete with advanced life support systems that would have impressed even experienced engineers. Zara watched from the shelter's window as the Zalani rescue teams worked with obvious amazement at what they discovered. The equipment Marcus had retrieved from the research station was beyond anything in their civilization's current technology. But more impressive than the machines was the evidence of how they had been used. Every system had been optimized for maximum efficiency and safety. Emergency protocols had been established and clearly documented in multiple languages. Medical supplies had been organized with careful attention to dosage and application procedures. Even the food distribution had been planned to ensure proper nutrition throughout their extended isolation. Your friend thinks like a military commander, Captain Vela of the rescue team told Zara as he reviewed Marcus's documentation. Every detail planned, every contingency anticipated. We could learn much from these methods. Marcus had spent the recovery time teaching them everything about the equipment, ensuring they could maintain the systems independently if necessary. The humans seemed to take personal responsibility for their continued survival, even though the immediate crisis had passed. When the rescue ships arrived, Marcus faced a choice. The human research vessel Columbia had been found with its crew safe, but stranded on another continent. Transport could be arranged to reunite Marcus with the team, but it would mean leaving immediately. I should go, Marcus told them as the rescue teams prepared their departure. My crew needs to know I am alive, and our research mission must be completed. But Kix had different ideas. The young Zalani had formed a deep bond with their rescuer, following Marcus everywhere and absorbing every lesson the human was willing to share. The boy had discovered an aptitude for understanding the advanced technology, asking questions that impressed even Marcus. Can't you stay longer? Kix asked with the desperate hope that only children can muster. There's so much more to learn. Marcus knelt down to Kix's level, as had become the human's habit when speaking to the boy. Learning never stops, small one. But sometimes we must learn in different places with different teachers. From a pocket in the repaired suit, Marcus produced a small device that Kix recognized as one of the learning tablets they had used during their time together. But this one was different, loaded with information specifically chosen for a young Zalani's education. Basic engineering principles, Marcus explained. Mathematics, physics, problem-solving methods. Study these, and perhaps someday you will build machines that save lives, as we have done here. Zara understood that this was more than a gift. It was an investment in Kix's future, and possibly in the future of their entire species. The knowledge contained in that simple device represented generations of human scientific advancement, freely shared with a child who had shown curiosity and determination. As the time came for departure, the rescue team's captain approached Marcus with an unusual request. Our government would like to open formal communications with Earth, Captain Vell explained. Your actions here have demonstrated the value of cooperation between our species. Marcus considered this carefully. I am not a diplomat, the human replied, but I will carry your message to my superiors. There is much we could learn from each other. The farewell was harder than Zara had expected. Marcus had been with them for only 3 weeks, but in that time had become more than a rescuer. The human had been teacher, protector, and friend to 2 young Zalani who had lost everything else. Will we see you again? Zara asked as Marcus prepared to board the transport. Perhaps, Marcus replied with characteristic honesty. The galaxy is large, but humans are persistent. We have a tendency to turn up in unexpected places. Kix hugged the human's leg, unwilling to let go. Marcus reached down and gently ruffled the boy's hair, a gesture that somehow conveyed more affection than any words could express. Remember what I taught you, Marcus said to both children. Help others when you can. Never give up when it matters. And always keep learning. As the transport lifted off, carrying Marcus back to the stars, Zara held her brother close and watched until the ship disappeared into the cloudy sky. She knew they would never forget the human who had arrived in their darkest hour, when death seemed certain and hope had almost died. The shelter around them hummed with alien technology that would revolutionize their world's understanding of engineering and medicine. But more important than any machine was the lesson Marcus had taught them through actions rather than words. Sometimes, the greatest strength came not from technology or knowledge, but from a simple determination to help others, regardless of the personal cost. Years later, when Kix became one of the youngest engineers in Zalani history, he would often tell the story of the human who walked through an impossible storm to save 2 children. The tale would spread across their world and, eventually to others, becoming a legend that embodied the best qualities of the species called human. In the stories, Marcus became larger than life, a symbol of courage and determination that inspired others to attempt their own impossible missions. But Zara, who remembered the quiet moments between the dramatic rescues, knew the truth was even more impressive than the legend. Marcus had been simply human, which meant being willing to risk everything for strangers in need, to keep going when others would give up, and to share knowledge and hope wherever it was needed most. In a galaxy full of wonders and terrors, perhaps that was the most remarkable thing of all.